With everybody spending their money and buying all sorts of expensive stuff, there's a higher probability of break-ins and burglaries. So let me just take a moment and warn you of these two fellas called the Wet Bandits. Here's a picture of them. Keep your house locked up, hide your kids, hide your wife, because these guys, they're gonna come into your house and clog your sink and then run the water till it overflows like a bunch of dickheads. So obviously I'm referring to the characters from the movie Home Alone, starring Macaulay Culkin, the man with the most misspelled name in history. Side note, he also has an amazing laugh.
I'm Macaulay Culkin.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I haven't seen it since I was a little kid. It was one of my favorite Christmas movies growing up, so I thought it'd be a treat if we went back and watched it together. Because I feel like we remember a bunch of movies from our childhood with rose-tinted glasses, so there's probably going to be a bunch of stuff in that movie that is a little bit weird. So the movie was directed by Christopher Columbus. The director is actually named Christopher Columbus. This is the same guy that directed the first two Harry Potter movies, but one of his more recent movies was Pixels, starring Adam Sandler. So he's seen better days. I'm gonna be a little bit pedantic in this video, just giving you guys a heads up. But that's kind of fun sometimes, you know, find the little things that are wrong with the film. So the movie starts with this random cop standing in the middle of the McAllister's house. He's just kind of standing there. A bunch of people are running past, and he's like, hey, where's your mom? For whatever reason, everyone's ignoring him. If there was a cop in my house, the last thing we would do is ignore him. It's probably something pretty important if a cop is wasting his time just standing in your house. And here we meet Kevin McAllister, the protagonist. Kevin is supposed to be a brat in this movie.
Kevin, out of the room.
Hang up the phone and make me, why don't you?
But it seems to me like everybody else is way meaner to Kevin.
I don't know how to pack a suitcase. I've never done this once in my whole life.
Tough.
The dope was whining about a suitcase. What am I supposed to do? Shake his hand and say, congratulations, you're an idiot?
I'm not an idiot.
Oh, really? You're completely helpless. Everyone has to do everything for you.
She's right, Kev.
Listen, Kev, what are you so worried about? You know Mom's gonna pack your stuff anyway. You're what the French call les incompetents.
Buzz,
Don't you know how to knock, phlegmwad?
can I sleep in your room?
I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass.
Like he's being bullied by everybody, and no one sticks up for him. So it's no surprise that he's at least a little bit bratty. So Kevin and his cousins are looking out the window at their old neighbor. There's a bunch of rumors about how he's evil and once murdered people.
See that garbage can full of salt? That's where he keeps his victims. The salt turns the bodies into mummies.
Wow.
So this pizza guy shows up with 1,000 pizzas and the cop is still standing there, just standing there. Then they take the pizza and don't pay for it right away, you know, like you should. You got me shitting me! Either things were way different back in the early 90s, or these people are just extremely rude. When Mr. McAllister finally does talk to the police officer tells him he's just there to check if their security's all right. Like you do, going from house to house.
Am I under arrest or something?
No. It's Christmas time. There's always a lot of burglaries around the holidays. So we're just checking the neighborhood to see if everyone's taking the proper precautions, that's all.
Oh, yeah, well.
So obviously this cop is one of the burglars and he's just trying to get the ins and outs of what their security system is like. The family's in the kitchen and they're all eating pizza and they all just continue picking on Kevin. Poor Kevin, this kid.
Did anyone order me a plain cheese?
Oh yeah, we did. But if you want any, somebody's gonna have to barf it all up, because it's gone. Get a plate.
So Kevin's fed up, so he rushes at Buzz, and all this commotion happens. So his mom gets really pissed off at Kevin. He wasn't getting bullied all night or anything, and nobody sticks up for him, not even his parents. They just sit there and watch their son get bullied by his cousins.
What is the matter with you? He started it. He ate my pizza on purpose. He knows I ate sausage and olives and
Look what
onions
you did, you little jerk.
Kevin, you're such a disease.
Kevin, upstairs.
And the cop is still standing there in their doorway. Maybe back then the police were way more integrated into people's lives or something. It still seems kind of weird either way. So then his mom takes him upstairs and bullies him some more and tells him to go in the attic.
There are 15 people in this house. You're the only one who has to make trouble.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
I'm the only one getting dumped on.
You're the only one acting up.
Kevin, you're such a disease.
I'm sorry.
It's too late. Get upstairs.
Everyone in this family hates me.
Then maybe you should ask Santa for a new family.
Got him!
I don't want a new family. I don't want any family. Families suck.
Just stay up there. I don't want to see you again for the rest of the night.
So everyone goes to bed, and in the middle of the night, the power goes out. So everyone sleeps in, and they wake up, and they're all rushed because they all have to get to a plane that's gonna take them all to Paris. So obviously Kevin gets left behind. And the way they explain this is this girl does a head count, but she accidentally counts the head of some random boy who's like going through their shit in their van. Kind of a strange plot device, I think. Who is this random kid, and why is he going through their stuff? Talk about a nosy little brat, you know what I mean?
9, 10.
Personally, I think it should be the mom's responsibility to make sure all of her kids are there, you know, before they leave. But everyone makes mistakes, so whatever. So they're driving to the airport. No one notices that Kevin isn't there while they're driving. And they're running through the airport, and still nobody notices that Kevin isn't there. They even board the plane without anyone noticing that Kevin isn't there. I mean, come on. In this scene, the dad literally watches them walk onto the plane. So Kevin wakes up, he's just moseying about. He's 8 years old, so he's kind of stupid, but he should know that they had a trip to go on, right? So even he should be a little bit rushed, like, oh, well, I have something to do. Something's gotta happen. But no, he's just kind of like chilling. And they have clocks, so he knows what time it is, unless nobody told him when they were supposed to leave. I think it's kind of strange how conveniently everything fell into place in order for Kevin to be forgotten about. First, his boarding pass gets thrown into the garbage. Then the power goes out. And it just so happens that every single person forgot to wake up Kevin. And it just so happens that Kevin didn't wake up in time. And it just so happens that there's this random kid there, so they miscount. And it just so happens that they don't notice him when they pack into the vans. And it just so happens that they don't notice him when they're running through the airport, and somehow they don't notice that he's not there when they board the plane. It's just a little much. He goes outside and finds that his parents' cars are still there, so he's like, oh, well, they must be playing a trick on me. Because the night before, he said to his mom that he wished that all of his family members would just disappear. So in his child brain, he thinks that his wish was just granted, and his family just went poof.
I made my family disappear.
But he also has his suspicions, you know, that his family is just playing tricks on him. So he's like, oh, come on out. I'm watching bad movies. You better get me. But obviously no one comes out. This black and white gangster film that Kevin's watching isn't actually a movie. It's actually footage specially made for the movie. It was called Angels with Filthy Souls. Take a look at that TV. Jesus, times have changed. This movie makes me feel so old. So then Kevin starts going through Buzz's stuff. They sprinkle in some edgy humor here, which is interesting.
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
I guess it was okay to make fun of fat girls in children's Christmas movies in the 90s. Who knew? And to think today, we can't even say Merry Christmas without people getting offended. However, it is true that according to the actor who played Buzz, the people who made the movie thought it would be unkind to make fun of a fat girl, so they got the art director's son to dress up as a girl instead. I'm not really sure what the point of this was. I don't think it takes away from the initial impression. And personally, I think it would have been fine either way if they chose a girl to make fun of instead of a guy dressed as a girl. But whatever. Without his abusive family there, he just takes advantage of his newfound freedom and runs around the house and does all sorts of stuff. When Kevin's running around the house, you know, waving his arms like this, I didn't think that was weird at all when I was a kid watching it. I was like, that's just how kids run, I guess. But watching it now, I'm like, why is he running like that? I guess to like let energy out. Maybe he feels less restricted because, you know, he has the house to himself. So back on the plane, his mom finally realizes that they left Kevin behind. I'm not sure how she realized it just on the plane randomly. Just, oh, wait a minute. I absolutely love this stair sled scene. The cinematography in this scene is so good. They actually make you feel like you're on the sled going down the stairs. So the burglars start talking about all the valuables that they can steal, and they mention a VCR.
It's got lots of top flight goods. Stereos, VCRs.
That's so weird hearing that nowadays. Like that must have been a valuable commodity back then, but today, it just sounds so strange.
Stereos, VCRs. Toys. Toys.
There was a farmer, had a dog, and Bingo was his name. NGO.
So Kevin sees the shadows of the burglars outside of his house. So he turns the basement lights on to scare them away. There's a scene where the mom is calling the police to check on Kevin, and the guy she's on the phone with gets like a piece of donut stuck on the phone. It's so gross. I remember being so bothered by that. And I still am. So the family tries to get a flight back home to get back to Kevin, but all of the flights are booked. So then there's this random scene of Kevin going to the store and buying a toothbrush. He's kind of a brat. He asks if it's approved by the American Dental Association.
Is this toothbrush approved by the American Dental Association?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't say, hon.
Can you please find out?
Really, nigga?
Then he runs into his old man neighbor, and the old guy gives him a scowl for some reason, other than to make the audience question his intentions. Does this old guy look at all kids like he wants to kill them? So then there's this scene where the burglars almost run over Kevin. So right after almost running over this child, these two guys start stalking him because he acts afraid. What is your plan? What is your goal here?
I don't like the way that kid looked at me. Did you see that?
You ever seen him before?
Well, maybe he looked at you weird because you almost ran him over with your fucking van. Just a thought, I don't know. So then Kevin says, when they come back, I'll be ready.
When those guys come back, I'll be ready.
How did he know the shadows that he saw earlier are these two people in particular? He probably recognized this douche's afro. Give that shit a trim, dude. So to make the burglars believe that everybody's still home, Kevin sets up a bunch of mannequins near the windows, and he cleverly puts a billboard cutout on a train so it looks like it's walking around. And he sets up the mannequins on strings that he pulls so it looks like they're moving from outside. And he puts on really loud music so it looks like there's a party going on. So what, is he just gonna be doing this all night? Like, when did he start doing this? Because these burglars can show up at any time, from when the sun goes down to when the sun goes up. So I mean, unless he's pulling those strings for like 6 hours straight, he got pretty lucky because he just happened to be doing it when the burglars arrived. It's a pretty clever and fun scene regardless, just not very realistic. I love this scene. Kevin orders pizza, but he's anxious because he's young. So in order to pay for it, he uses the gangster film that he saw earlier. He pauses it and starts it up to respond to the pizza guy. It's really clever.
How much do I owe you?
That'll be $11.80, sir.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Cheapskate.
It definitely wouldn't work in real life, you know? The audio probably wouldn't be loud enough, and it wouldn't be clear enough, and it'd probably be very obvious that it was coming from a television. Then this happens.
I'm gonna give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, yellow, no good keister off my property before I pump your guts full of lead. 1, 2, 10.
Kevin's an evil little bastard. He wants the pizza guy to be frightened for his life. And if the pizza guy legitimately believed that he was being shot at by this person, you would think he would call the cops on him. I love the scenes of him using his parents' bathroom and acting like a grown-up. You know, he's using aftershave when he clearly doesn't need it. This scene is great because I feel like it's something that a lot of kids can relate to. That eagerness to grow up and feel like an adult. So then there's this scene of Kevin going shopping. There's obviously people in this grocery store, but nobody stops him. He's just walking around, this 8-year-old child. You would think that at least someone would be like, where are your parents? Do you need some help? What's going on? Even the cashier, after some light questioning, just lets him pay for his stuff and leave. So then there's a scene of Kevin facing his fears. He goes back down into the cellar and he tells the furnace to shut up. If you're observant, you'll notice that many of the shots that focus on Kevin in the beginning of the movie are filmed above his head, making him seem small and helpless. At the end of the film, Kevin is mostly shot from below, making him seem taller and more confident. It's little things like that in filmmaking that I really appreciate. It kind of reminds me of this film from 2017 called The Florida Project. The entire film is shot from the kid's perspective, so it's really low. And even when the adults are around, the camera is aimed upwards at them instead of, you know, at their level. So then Kevin repeats the whole gangster flick thing to scare off Marv. When Harry and Marv are walking away, in the middle of the yard, Harry pretty much yells his plans to revisit the house at 9 p.m. It almost comes across as bait, you know, like he's trying to make them think he'll come at 9 p.m., but he's actually gonna come at a different time. But no, those are actually the plans.
We'll unload the van, we'll get a bite to eat, and we'll come back about 9 o'clock. We'll come back about 9 o'clock.
I know Kevin's hanging out the window and that's how he heard it, but come on, you gotta be a little bit more incognito than that, bro. It seems like this isn't your first rodeo, you know? You do these burglaries pretty often. You think you'd keep your plans on the down low. And if Kevin was able to call the pizza guy, you'd assume that he would call the cops as soon as he learned that the burglars were gonna come at 9 p.m. instead of spending all this time trying to kill them. Maybe this kid's like a little psychopath. He's like a little Dexter. That's why all those rumors are floating around about this kid being the guy from the Saw movies. But then again, he's afraid of the police because he accidentally stole a toothbrush earlier. So maybe that's why he didn't call them. But later on in the film, he calls the police. So what? Then there's one of the cutest scenes in the movie. Kevin goes to this outdoor Santa house because he wants to talk to Santa, but not the fake Santa because he knows that that's just a guy in a Santa costume. He wants that Santa to send a message to the real Santa because he knows that they work together.
I know you're not the real Santa Claus.
What makes you say that? Just out of curiosity.
I'm old enough to know how it works.
All right.
But I also know that you work for him.
He asks that Santa to ask the real Santa to exchange all of his gifts for his family members. And he's 100% genuine about it. This scene is so exemplary of children's innocence.
Okay, this is extremely important. Would you please tell him that instead of presents this year, I just want my family back?
I mean, it is kind of weird that he's just walking around at night alone. Like, you think that this Santa or the elf would be like, why is this 8-year-old just walking around by himself at night? But no, they're like, all right, well, whatever. You'd feel like the Christmas spirit would make them question this a little bit more, you know? Especially if he's asking for his family. I know that this Santa is clearly not in a great spot because, I mean, just look at his car. Lend a helping hand to an 8-year-old that's wandering around at nighttime alone. Is that so much to ask? So right when Santa's about to leave, his car just stalls out. And it looks like that was planned, right? Like his car is a piece of junk, so obviously it's not gonna start right away. But the car actually did stall on camera, and they decide just to keep that take because it works so perfectly. So then Kevin goes to a church to start praying for his family back. And then he notices his old neighbor. His old neighbor gets up and walks over to him and asks him if he can sit next to him. Kevin's kind of wary at first, but then he says, it's okay, whatever. I know nowadays, like the combination of church, old man, and young boy, you know, you kind of want to avoid that as much as possible. But back then, that stigma didn't exist. It was just a cute scene. And it still is just a cute scene. The old man is very friendly and he confides in Kevin. And he starts telling him about his own son and how he regrets the fact that he told him so long ago that he never wanted to speak to him again. And the childish nature of Kevin responds to that in a way a child would. Well, why don't you just call him? And I really like this scene because it shows that no matter how old you are, sometimes you can find the best advice in the most unlikely of places and people. So this is where the fun starts, right? So Marv and Harry approach the house. So the two burglars are by the door trying to bait him to open up, but instead Kevin sticks the BB gun through the doggy door and shoots Harry in the balls.
Be a good little fella now and open the door.
So then Marv, being the genius that he is, sticks his head in the doggy door and Kevin shoots him in the face. So then these guys are pissed, right? They want to get revenge on this kid. So Marv tries to infiltrate through the basement and Harry tries to infiltrate through the front door. They both slip because a while ago, Kevin poured water all over the stairs, but then Harry just keeps trying to walk up the same flight of stairs when he can obviously just walk around the stairs. And why aren't either of the burglars wearing masks if they know this kid is there? That's kind of stupid, right? Especially when you know that this kid saw you earlier. You know that this kid is going to be able to identify you to people unless you plan on killing him, which is weird because earlier in the movie, it showed that at least Harry had some morals because when they were done robbing the other place, Marv clogged the sink and ran the water so it would overflow and, you know, damage their house. And Harry didn't like that very much. He was like, oh, why would you do that? That's a dick move, dude.
You left the water running, didn't you? What's wrong with you? Why do you do that? I told you not to do it.
Harry, it's our calling card.
Calling card.
All the great ones leave their mark. We're the Wet Bandits.
You're sick, you know that? You're really sick.
But he's totally okay with killing an 8-year-old kid. So Kevin put this heating iron thing on the inside doorknob so that when Harry goes to open it from the outside, he burns his hand on the doorknob because the heat, you know, goes through the doorknob. This was actually myth busted.
The exterior doorknob only got to about 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which still wouldn't be that pleasant to touch, but wouldn't do that much damage. The interior doorknob, however, we got up to a total temperature of 1400 degrees Fahrenheit.
This scene gets a pass from me because not everything in a movie has to be like scientifically proven to work, because then you remove a lot of the fun out of it and whatever. Marv successfully gets through the basement door with a crowbar. When Marv's in the basement, he looks up and an iron just falls like 20 feet directly into his face. Kevin put a bunch of tar on the basement steps and one nail. And as Marv's walking up the basement steps, the tar removes his shoes. He just happens to step on it. The fact that he stepped on the one nail that was sticking out of the stairs. I mean, come on. That's just not very likely, is it? So Harry tries entering through the side door, but as soon as he opens the door, there's a blowtorch above him that starts roasting his head. But he just kind of sits there and lets his head get burned for like a full 5 seconds before removing his head. So these guys are essentially being bullied by a kid, and for whatever reason they don't just leave at this point. They're both injured. You would assume that they would just leave, but no, they really want to kill this kid, and they're gonna do so. Their mission changed from burglary to murder.
It's too late for you, kid. We're already in the house. We're gonna get you.
They finally enter the house, they get some more boo-boos, and they find Kevin atop a staircase. Kevin takes a paint can that's on a rope and swings it down at the burglars, and it hits Marv directly in the face. So not only did Marv get bludgeoned by a falling iron, he gets obliterated by a swinging paint can. How is this guy not dead? According to Google, a full paint can weighs 11.5 pounds. He should at least be unconscious. And another paint can comes flying down and hits Harry. So he successfully killed both of the robbers. Good job. Oh wait, no he didn't. So miraculously, they keep chasing Kevin instead of just leaving. Like, clearly this kid knows what he's doing at this point. Leave with your lives while you still have them. Who knows what he's got upstairs? He could have like a secret Iron Maiden in the next room. Who knows? For Kevin, an 8-year-old boy who's alone is being chased down by 2 adult men. He's pretty calm, I think. This kid is very strange.
Okay, come and get me. I'm up here, you morons. Come and get me. You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
I mean, he overcame his fear of the furnace in the basement, so that means he's just fearless of everything. Even 2 grown-ass men about to kill him. Marv and Harry run upstairs. Harry trips on a wire. Marv jumps over it and grabs Kevin by the ankle, but he just stays on the ground for some reason. He could easily just stand up and grab Kevin, but he decides not to. So this gives Kevin the opportunity to grab a tarantula that's on the ground and gently place it on Marv's face. And then we get this classic scream. I fucking love that part. And the scream is real, by the way. They told him before they shot the scene that tarantulas are deaf. So when they put the spider on his face, he was comfortable to scream as long as he wanted. They found out later that the tarantula's poison wasn't extracted before filming. The tarantula crawls up on Harry's chest. So what does Marv do? This fucking idiot, this complete dumbass, decides to try and kill the tarantula while it's on his friend's chest with a crowbar. It's so weird because when I saw this as a kid, I thought it was completely normal. I didn't think there was any problem with this scene. Why don't you like kick the spider off of him first and then try and kill it? Why try and kill it at all? Just kick the spider off of him and continue chasing the kid. So after Marv breaks Harry's sternum, they continue chasing Kevin. Kevin uses a zip line to get from a basement window to a treehouse. So what do these 2 geniuses decide to do once they see that the kid is no longer a threat? Instead of robbing the house, which was the original goal, they decide this kid is such a pest that they're going to literally climb the rope over to the treehouse, like from the window. What? If they were this driven to kill Kevin, it would be way more convenient to just go downstairs outside and run over to the treehouse and climb the ladder than it would be to shimmy your way all the way across to the treehouse. And not to mention that's super dangerous. They're not even sure how much weight it can hold. And they both start climbing on it. It's absurd. So Kevin, who expected them to climb across the rope for some reason, has these bush cutters and he uses them to cut the rope. So they swing down and hit the house. Kevin runs to his neighbor's house. Somehow these 2 burglars are still capable of running after this kid at this point, you know, after all this abuse. So they finally corner Kevin in the neighbor's house, and they start describing all the ways that they're going to torture him. These guys are fucked up.
And I'll burn his head with a blowtorch.
And smash his face with an iron!
So then the old guy from earlier sneaks up behind them and beats them with a snow shovel. Then we cut to a scene where Kevin's mother got so desperate to get home that she accepted a ride from a bunch of random guys at an airport. And it's just her. Why didn't her husband go with her? I would never let my wife just go on this random road trip with a bunch of random men. I guess people were way more trusting back in the early 90s. Like, oh, they promised they'd bring me home. Okay. What makes you think they're not just gonna like gang rape you and bury you somewhere? Maybe I'm just too cynical for this world. So the family arrives back at the house. They're all friendly with each other. Kevin must know at this point that he didn't just wish them away, since they all have luggage and stuff. I would be really upset with them that they left me at the house alone for like 4 full days. Not to mention what I had to go through in that time. At the very end of this movie, Kevin looks out the window and sees the old guy reuniting with his son. It's so cute! There's something I've always loved about this movie. The music is so good. There's so many classic songs from this movie. I'm probably going to get a copyright strike if I use these songs. So in the description, I put some links to the songs in the movie. Thank you, John Williams. Your work is amazing. Don't forget to check out alienclothing.com where you can buy cool shirts like this. And a huge thank you to all of my patrons over on Patreon. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
I'm Macaulay Culkin.
And vengeance. And that's walks around. And,